The Forgetful Fairy. Deep in the Whimsy Woods, where the flowers glowed at night and the trees whispered secrets, lived a tiny fairy named Faye. Faye was the kindest fairy in the woods, but she had one little problem. She was always forgetting things. One morning, the Fairy Queen called for her. "Faye, I have a very important job for you." Faye's wings fluttered excitedly. "Oh, what is it?" "The children of the village are waiting for their fairy gifts. You must deliver wishes and sparkles before the sun rises." Faye nodded eagerly. "I won't forget." But as soon as she flew off, whoosh, she got distracted by a rainbow butterfly. "Oh, how pretty," she giggled, chasing it in circles. Then, oops, she landed on a fluffy mushroom and forgot what she was supposed to do. "Oh no, what was my task again?" she wondered, tapping her tiny chin. She zoomed back to the Fairy Queen. I might have forgotten the important job." The Queen sighed with a smile. "You must find a way to remember, little one." Faye thought hard. Thending. She had an idea. She tied a shiny ribbon around her wrist. "Every time I look at this, I'll remember my job." Off she flew again, this time focused and determined. She sprinkled sweet dreams over a little boy named Leo, who was afraid of the dark. She left a sparkle of courage for Mia, who was nervous about her first day of school. She even gave Benny the baker a pinch of fairy dust to make his cakes extra delicious. By the time the sun peeked over the hills, Faye had finished every single delivery. She zipped back to the Fairy Queen, beaming. "I did it! I remembered!" The Queen smiled. "Well done, Faye. Even the most forgetful fairies can find a way to remember." From that day on, Faye always wore a tiny ribbon to remind her of her tasks, and she never forgot again. The end. The runaway shoes. One morning, Tommy woke up and stretched his arms. "Time to get ready for school," he yawned. But when he looked down, his shoes were gone. Tommy searched under the bed, behind the door, and inside his toy box. No shoes. Then, he heard a tiny giggle from outside. He rushed to the window and gasped. His sneakers were running down the street all by themselves. "Come back here, shoes," Tommy shouted, racing after them. The runaway shoes zigzagged through the park. They jumped over puddles, skipped past sleepy cats, and even bounced over a picnic table. Tommy huffed and puffed, chasing them all the way to Mrs. Fig's bakery. The shoes stopped right in front of a little girl who sat on the bench, looking sad. Tommy tilted his head. "Why did you stop?" The girl sniffled. "I lost my shoes, and now I can't play." Tommy looked at his sneakers. "Wait a minute, did you run away to find someone who needed you?" The shoes wiggled their laces as if to say yes. Tommy thought for a moment, then smiled. He took off his socks and handed the shoes to the little girl. "Here, you can have them." Her eyes lit up. "Really?" Tommy nodded. "Shoes are meant to run, jump, and play. I'll find a new pair." The girl slipped them on, wiggled her toes, and grinned. Perfect fit. As she ran off to play, Tommy's feet felt strangely warm. He looked down. A brand new pair of sneakers had appeared. These ones were red with shiny gold laces and felt extra bouncy. A tiny whisper floated in the air. "Good deeds always come back to you." Tommy smiled. Maybe some shoes just have a little magic in them. And from that day on, he always made sure his shoes were ready for an adventure. The end. The little robot who wanted a hug. In a shiny metal workshop filled with whirring gears and blinking lights, lived a small, silver robot named Robo. Robo had a big heart, even though it was made of wires and circuits. But there was one thing he had never felt before: hug. He had seen humans hug each other warm, happy, and full of love. And Robo wanted one too. One day he rolled up to the big inventor, Professor Tinker. "Professor," he beeped, "may I have a hug?" The professor smiled. "Oh, Robo, I'd love to, but your metal body is too hard and cold. It wouldn't feel nice." Robo's light dimmed. He didn't want to be cold and hard. He wanted to be warm and huggable. So Robo set off to find the perfect way to get a hug. First, he tried wrapping himself in fluffy pillows. "Now I am soft," he said, rolling up to a little girl in the park. But boing, the pillows bounced off, and the girl just giggled. Next, Robo tried covering himself in fuzzy kitten fur, with the kitten still inside. But meow! The kitten scattered everywhere, and Robo ended up covered in fluff balls. Then, He tried wrapping himself in a giant marshmallow coat. Now I am warm and squishy. But squish! He got stuck to the sidewalk and a bird pecked at his marshmallowy arms. Robo sighed. Will I ever get a hug? Just then he heard a small sniffle. A little boy was sitting on a bench looking very sad. What's wrong? Robo beeped. My balloon flew away. The boy sighed. Robo thought for a moment. Then beep. Whir! Whoosh! He extended his long robot arm high into the sky and grabbed the floating balloon. Here you go, Robo said. The boy's eyes lit up. Thank you, Robo. Then before Robo could say a word, the boy wrapped his arms around him and gave him a big warm hug. Robo's circuits buzzed with happiness. I got a hug, he cheered. He finally realized it wasn't about being soft or warm, it was about being kind. From that day on, Robo gave helping hugs to anyone who needed them, even if they were a little metal and clunky. The end. Captain Jellybean's pirate adventure out on the sparkling blue ocean, aboard the SS Giggles, sailed the bravest and silliest pirate of them all, Captain Jellybean. Captain Jellybean wasn't a usual pirate. Instead of gold, he loved treasure chests full of jelly beans. His ship was striped like a candy cane, and his flag had a giant smiling jelly bean on it. One day, as he chomped on a handful of his favorite cherry jelly beans, his parrot, Pickles, squawked loudly. Treasure map! Treasure map! Captain Jellybean spun around. A treasure map, you say? Pickles dropped a crinkled old map into his hands. Captain Jellybean's eyes twinkled. A hidden island? With the biggest jellybean treasure ever? Off we go, crew. His loyal crew of silly pirates Wiggly Walter, Tiny Tilly and Big Boots Bob cheered. Aye aye, Captain. With a whoosh of the sails, they set off, following the X on the map. But the journey wasn't easy. First, they sailed through the Tickle Tickle Reef, where gigglefish splashed water at them, making everyone laugh uncontrollably. Next, they passed Bubblegum Bay, where the waves were made of pink, sticky bubbles. Big Boots Bob almost got stuck to the deck. Finally, they reached Jellybean Island, where a giant candy-colored mountain stood before them. Captain Jellybean pointed to the top. The treasure must be up there. They climbed and climbed until they found a huge wooden chest. Captain Jellybean threw open the lid and gasp, inside was a giant, shimmering, rainbow jellybean. The crew cheered. The greatest treasure of all. Just then the ground rumbled. The jellybean volcano was about to erupt with flying jellybeans. Back to the ship, Captain Jellybean shouted. They slid down the mountain, dodging bouncing blueberry beans and rolling raspberry ones. Safely aboard, they watched colorful jelly beans rain down from the sky. Captain Jellybean popped one in his mouth and grinned. A pirate's life is truly sweet. And so, with their tummies full of jellybean treasure, the SS Giggles sailed off to the next grand adventure. The end. Benny the Bouncing Cloud. High up in the blue sky, where the sun shines bright and the wind sings soft songs, lived a small, fluffy cloud named Benny. But Benny wasn't like other clouds. While the big clouds floated lazily, Benny loved to bounce. Boing, boing, up and down he went, skipping across the sky. Clouds are supposed to drift, not bounce, grumbled old Grizzle, the biggest storm cloud. But bouncing is fun, giggled Benny. One day, as Benny bounced near the meadow, he saw a little bird struggling to fly. Oh no, what's wrong? Benny asked. My wing is hurt, chirped the bird. I can't get back to my nest. Benny thought for a moment. Then boing, boing, he bounced under the bird and gently lifted her up. With one last bounce, he reached the nest. The little bird hopped off safely and chirped. Thank you, Benny. Benny felt proud. The next day, a group of children were playing in the park when the sun became too hot. Benny bounced over and spread his fluffy shade above them. Ah, that's better, they cheered. Benny beamed. But just as he was having fun, dark storm clouds gathered. Crack, boom, thunder rumbled. Time for rain, growled old Grizzle. Go away, Benny. You're just a bouncing cloud. Benny frowned. Maybe he wasn't important after all. Then Benny saw a little lost kite tangled in a tree. This is my chance to help, Benny thought. Boing, boing. He bounced higher and higher until snag. He caught the kite in his fluffy puff. With one last bounce, he gently placed it back in a little boy's hands. Wow. Thanks, Cloud, the boy cheered. Just then, old Grizzle paused. Maybe bouncing clouds can be helpful, he grumbled. Benny smiled. He might not be like the other clouds, but being different made him special. And so, Benny bounced happily ever after, helping birds, children, and lost kites all over the world. The end.